Lawrence, why is it that most good scientists don't believe in God?
Well, I think you're overstating it a little bit. I think that most scientists don't think enough about God to know whether they believe in him or not. It's just irrelevant. There's no evidence that we need anything other than the laws of physics and the other laws of science to explain everything we see. Physics has been so successful in describing the universe that we tend to be the most obnoxious among the scientists in terms of our chutzpah, in terms of assuming what we can do. In fact, often overstating the case that science is all there is.
Why do you say overstating the case?
Well, because I've come to realize over the last years that it's really important to realize that science isn't all there is. We now can address with a straight face questions like why is there matter in the universe and what happened in the first billionth of a second. And so because of that grand sense of power, I think people tend to say, well, if we can understand things all the way back to the first billionth of a second, we understand everything. But science is not the only way of knowing. Many people feel some spiritual sense, and science doesn't address that. Some scientists would say because science doesn't address it, it doesn't exist. It's nonsense, you're fooling yourself. And that might be right. But if you can't test it, it isn't science. And there are lots of things you can't test. I think it is really important to recognize, as has been said, that science does not make it impossible to believe in God. It just makes it possible to not believe in God. And that's really important because until you had science, everything was a miracle. So science takes a tremendous amount away from being miraculous and says there's just a pedestrian cause, maybe a wonderful cause, but it's a natural cause. I was at the Vatican once and at the Pontifical Academy and lecturing to some theologians, and I said to them, and I wasn't being facetious, that they had to listen to me, but I didn't have to listen to them. Because in some sense, I think to have an honest and sensible theology, you have to be consistent with the laws of physics.
Right.
But I don't need to know anything about purpose or ultimate purpose of the universe to understand how it works.
But is there an area beyond which science cannot go and even in principle cannot go?
Yes, of course, there is, and I would say faith in some sense. Faith being defined as that which you believe in with the absence of evidence. I'm always hesitant to make absolute statements because as we understand more and more about the history of the universe and understand whether our universe is unique, etc., we may come to grips with questions that have traditionally been theological ones. So I can't say that at some point we won't. But it is important to realize at this point what the limits are. And I think there's been a lot of interest in the interface between science and religion, and I find that unusual. Because I don't think there is much at the interface.